a creepy old boarding house, a strange painting, a jealous ex-lover, and a body found in a locked room. Yes, all the ingredients of a classic murder mystery. Because today on Dragon's Teeth, we're taking a look at the scenario, a boarding house at Arkham Street. Hi, I'm Rob Poyton. Thanks for joining me today here on Dragon's Teeth, where we're taking a look at the first scenario I've used for Mothership that isn't a Mothership scenario. However, before we get into all that whodunit stuff, just a quick reminder that we're drawing very close, it's just about a month away now, to the Innsmouth Literary Festival 2026, held in Oddly Moist, Bedford, and we're delighted to announce that there's going to be a launch at the ILF this year of a special edition of the Phantasmagoria horror magazine. Yes, it's going to be an Innsmouth special with new cover artwork by Les Edwards and a number of authors contributing new stories, including, of course, the wonderful Mr. Ramsey Campbell. So you'll be able to pick up copies of that at ILF. You'll be able to get them signed by the editor. Trevor Kennedy's going to be there, and of course our guests of honour Les Edwards and Stephen Jones are also going to be there as well. So if you'd like to take part in a wonderful day full of weird fiction and cosmic horror, plus Innsmouth After Dark as well, do check the link down in the show notes below. Tickets are going fast, and you know, there's only so much room on old Joe's bus, so be quick. Alright, let's get into our scenario. So the boarding house at Arkham Street is a horror scenario written by Enrique Camino, translated by him as well from the original Spanish into English. The design is by JSDS, and this is published by 314 Games. Now I'm guessing they're based in Spain because all of their original output is in Spanish, but most of it has been translated as well, and I'll put their link to DrivThru RPG in the show notes down below as well. And as I said, this is a horror scenario and it's system agnostic. I guess for most people you can easily put this into your Call of Cthulhu campaign or run it as a one-shot, but it's very easily to adapt to any rule set, and indeed I ported it totally from 1930s America to a space station in the far future. So what I'm going to do today is give you an overview of the scenario, how it's presented, how it works. Then we'll go into spoiler territory with what is actually going on. We'll delve into the plot a little bit more. And to wrap things up, I'll show you how I adapted it to my Mothership campaign and how well or otherwise my team of characters did in solving the mystery. So as I mentioned, this is authored by Enrique Camino and published by 314 Games, who put out not only scenarios in the pulp horror mould, but also a lot of game master aids as well, such as floor plans and other things. So do check out their link. Oh, and by the way, at the moment, at the time of recording at least, this boarding house scenario is up for free on DrivThru RPG. You really can't go wrong with that. So we are in America, 1920s, 1930s, moving into the 1930s perhaps, and we are in the boarding house on Arkham Street. As I said at the start, we have the classic locked room murder mystery. One of the tenants is found dead. There are no immediate or obvious signs of foul play, but it seems that the victim did die from asphyxiation. So of course you can fit this into your own campaign, or there are characters provided, and those characters are also residents in the guest house. So initially no one really knows each other, which of course is only going to add to the air of mystery. The backdrop of the game is the sort of early run-up to World War II. So there are references to what is happening in Europe, for example. And one thing I will say with this is the NPCs and the background and the setting are all very nicely detailed. If you wanted to run this straight out of the box, then you really wouldn't need to do very much at all. It's very easy to work it as it is. It's a good clean layout. As I said, there's plenty of detail, especially on the NPCs, including the cat. We'll be returning to the cat later on. And the maps and artwork, all very nice and very clear as well. So that's the basic setup. The characters are staying in this boarding house. There's been a murder, there's been another murder, and we go from there. Now, it does run a little bit in a linear fashion because, as you might imagine, there's going to be more than one murder. So this plays out over the course of a few days. And of course, at some point with this, you get the police involved. So there's an element of that police procedural in it. But I don't think, without knowing what's going on, I don't think that characters will find this an easy one to solve. This isn't a case of, oh, the butler did it. There's lots of red herrings. There's lots of little alleyways and avenues to explore. And yeah, I think the reveal will come as something of a shock to people. Let's get on to that. Alright, so now we're going to get into spoiler territory and we're going to look at exactly what is going on in the Arkham boarding house. So, the central character of the story is a Charles Simchek, who's a teacher. Now, Charles, unfortunately, his wife passed away some years ago from tuberculosis, and he got very involved in spiritualism, trying to contact his dead wife. Unfortunately, the medium that he went to was outed as a fraud, but this led Charles on a path into various occult studies. Specifically, he was looking at being able to make contact with the other side. Unfortunately for him, he didn't quite get through to the other side, but he did get through to another place. And a creature there used this connection in order to come into our dimension and, well, really kind of not take him over, but live inside him, like a sort of spiritual parasite. So that's bad enough, right? It gets even worse because when this entity gets hungry, it manifests physically, and it does that in the form of a huge black centipede that comes out of Charles's mouth while he sleeps. He's put into a kind of deep sleep or trance. This thing comes out, scuttles off, finds a victim, goes into their mouth, asphyxiates them, feeds, and then comes back. And poor Charles wakes up next morning with a bit of a headache and a sore throat, not quite sure what has gone on. But what he has worked out is that wherever he goes, people are getting killed. So he kind of puts two and two together. He has an idea of what's going on. And as you can imagine, this puts him in something of a psychological quandary. Now, the way this creature works is it feeds regularly, but not that often. So I think it's every few months it needs to feed. But of course, it's not happy with just one victim. It's going to take a 2 or 3. So after that initial murder, as you'd imagine, we get a period of investigation. The police come in. There's a potential jealous ex-boyfriend. There's a little kind of side plot, which is a bit of a red herring, but it's a nice touch of an old photo of the boarding house with a mysterious figure in the window, and there was a fire. There's a whole little backstory there, which I'm sure is going to drag most players off down that path. But the truth is, truth is stranger than fiction. It's a giant interdimensional centipede creature, and that's going to come out again and murder someone else in the house. I think in the original scenario, it actually goes to the landlady as the next victim. So, at some point, hopefully, the characters are going to work out at least who is involved. And this is where we go back to our cat, because it's the cat. Isn't it about time the cat was a hero of a story? The cat that is scratching around and sniffs this beastie out and basically ends up scratching at Charles's door if the players follow the clue. And that can be a big if. They get the chance to confront Charles. Now, what happens here, of course, is that if he's put under stress or a lot of tension, a lot of pressure, then the creature feels threatened and out it comes. What a lovely looking sight. Instant sand roll there and then. Now, you can then play this a few different ways. The creature might attack so they can try and kill it. the creature might disappear. It might try and take over someone else in the house. So then we get this nice kind of alien-esque bug hunt throughout the boarding house. You know, you can try it running it a few different ways. So that's already a nice setup, but I thought the cherry on the top, so to speak, was this moral dilemma for the players. What do they do about Charles? Obviously, the simplest thing would be to just off him, right? There he goes. But you're murdering an old man, a respectable old teacher, who really has nothing to do with these murders as such, is in a lot of ways as much a victim as anyone else. So there's that moral dilemma. There's the fact that he knows roughly what is going on, and of course, if he's awake when the thing comes out, now he knows the full truth, the full horror. He's very contrite, of course, he's very upset about this. So does this then take us down another path where the players encourage him to maybe take his own life? You know, I like this in scenarios where, yeah, we've got a bug, we've got a monster, giant centipede thing scuttling around, hiding, you know, under things and up in the shadows. Great, really nice monster. But this added layer of moral ambiguity, or a question that you have to put to the characters, this really elevates the scenario, I think. And it reminds me of things like in fiction, Sword and Sorcery, for example, Tower of the Elephant, the classic Conan story, where Conan encounters a fellow thief, then a giant spider, and then he encounters this totally alien being. And you might think, well, Conan's a barbarian, he just cuts its head off. He does kind of kill it, but it is a mercy killing in the end. We get this whole interaction between Conan and Yakosha, which to me, again, adds that extra layer in. It's a whole nother level of psychology, if you like, in what people would probably dismiss, oh, it's just a sword and sorcery story, hack slash and all the rest of it. So I really do like that aspect. How your characters deal with that, of course, will be up to them. I'll tell you what happened with my characters. Of course, the first thing I did was change the setting. We aren't in 1930s New England. We're on Prospero's dream in the far future, this massive space station home to millions of people. And this was an easy one to set up because my characters are part of Assault Team 5, which is an undercover operative group sent to Prospero's dream to investigate, disrupt and destroy the drug trade in their particular sector. So they need somewhere to stay, right? The place they are staying at is owned by a Mrs. Kaur. It's at the Salam guest house. Mrs. Kaur is a former operative herself. She's got the same background as the player characters, but way more advanced. And she is effectively retired to run this boarding house and provide a safe house for operatives and for other people as well. So the players from day one, when they arrive, are already in the setting for this scenario. This gave me lots of time to build up relationships with the other tenants. Because of course this is the next thing I changed. All my tenants relate to Prospero's dream and potentially other scenario leads as well. We've already heard about the unfortunate Craig Wu in the Club Nebula scenario, so he was a fellow tenant at the guest house. That's where they first met him. Now, in order to seed this scenario, over the course of time where they're staying there, we get the appearance with increasing frequency of red centipedes. Not huge things, just normal sized centipedes. But in fact, the very first time they arrive at the guest house, someone presses the buzzer at the front and a red centipede runs across their hand. Nice little stress point straight away. And of course, as we progress, we start seeing these things crop up more. We had a little scene in the shower where someone turns the shower on and red centipedes come down, which was my homage to the book and the film Squirm about the worms. If you haven't seen it, put it on your list. It's a classic. This all leads up to the first murder, which happens to be another tenant in the house who works at the local casino, who, as it happens, one of the party has, shall we say, entered into relations with. So we've got this extra bond between the party and the first victim. That is presented pretty much as it is in the scenario. Locked room, victim on the floor, no signs of a struggle, no external marks, asphyxiation. I added a little bit in. The autopsy revealed that the victim, all her internal organs had been liquidized. This is how the thing feeds. Now, the other thing I changed was the origin of the creature. Because, well, we may have an element of occult in Mothership, but I went for a more horrible corporate science angle. So, in my version, Charles's wife was terminally ill. A corporation got in touch and offered to give her a cure if Charles agreed to take part in some of their experiments. Of course, he agreed. He was taken to a facility which actually links into something else that's going on the campaign. The name of this company keeps cropping up. He was taken to the facility. His wife was treated. Actually, she wasn't. She was just given a placebo. And Charles had placed within him this alien creature in a sort of embryonic form. So, Charles's wife passes away, unfortunately. Charles is under observation. They let him go back to his normal life. Murders start happening. Charles gets an inkling of what is going on and flees. Basically, he flees. He ends up on Prospero's dream. He's moving from place to place as these killings happen every few months. He's ended up at the Salam guest house. So, of course, when we get the first murder, there's uproar in the guest house. I also did my own floor plans to fit in with the setting as well. Again, so every NPC in my campaign has a room, so on and so on. So we use that, and the player characters begin to investigate. There's not much for them to go on. The red centipede thing became the underlying theme, because this is where the cat comes in again. The cat every now and again pops up and catches and kills a little red centipede somewhere. So they've got the idea that something is going on, and they start putting forth various theories that masses of these centipedes are going into people and all the rest of it. After the second murder, a day or so later, then we put in that cat scratching at Charles's door. The characters did take the bait, so to speak, or at least one of them did. Knocked on the door, got Charles up, who's half asleep. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't know what's going on. And I think the line was from the character Aris, in a non-violent, non-aggressive way, I'm going to barge past him into his room. So we've got this burly young operative shoving this old maths teacher out the way to get into the room to catch the centipedes or whatever he thinks is in there. Of course, Charles falls, bangs his head on the wall, stress, out comes the creature. Aris fails his panic roll and spends most of the rest of the scenario clinging to the wall outside going, oh, it's in there, it's in there. Everyone else gets involved. The big centipede disappears, attacks one of the party who's in another room on his own, looking around. They manage to come in and save him. They get the centipede off. Of course, it disappears again. During this, the local security force, the SFPD, turn up, and there's various things going on there as well. And we then had this quite bizarre series of investigations, I suppose you'd call them, where the player characters went back up to their apartment on the top floor and started doing things like, right, we want to catch some of these little red centipedes. So they spend some time searching around the place, catching these little ones. Bearing in mind, there's a big 6-foot one on the loose that they seem to just forget about. When they capture these centipedes, they start doing experiments on them. They got some lab mice, don't ask how, and they're seeing if one will attack the other. They're trying to find out what the red centipedes eat. They even tried fitting a tracker on one of the centipedes and letting it go to see if it led them somewhere interesting. It didn't. Actually, the cat got it. They did everything except go and look in Charles's room and read his journal. Which of course has pretty much the whole background in it, in good Call of Cthulhu fashion, right? So basically they spent the whole day doing these investigations. Charles was taken off to hospital. Eventually, when they did get downstairs, after a few prompts, you know, I said you could always go and look in the room full of books downstairs. Anyway, they got there eventually. They read his diary, read his notes, then went to see him at the hospital and got the full story. Very emotional scene, as you can imagine. And they ended up on the way out Todd, one of the characters, just adjusted to the morphine level, you know. But to be fair, they did talk that over. This wasn't just a case of, well, obviously we've got to kill him, you know, oh, just shoot him, which does pop up in RPGs every now and again. Oh, we'll just kill him, you know. Of course, if you do that on somewhere like Prospero's Dream, then there are huge and usually quite immediate consequences. So although it did take them a little bit of time, they did get there in the end. And if you want to see the whole thing in its full glory, I'm uploading each episode of AT5 as we play it. So that's all up on the YouTube channel on the Mothership playlist. Overall then, certainly for my campaign, this was a great fit, a very easy fit, and quite a rewarding one to run. What happened to the big centipede, you might ask? Well, unfortunately, or fortunately, as it turned out, one of the players had to leave the campaign. His character name is Mac. Mac, at some point, was on his own in the boarding house. Everyone was off doing things and chasing centipedes and trying to fit GoPros to centipedes and all this kind of stuff. Mac took a little bit of time out to himself. Perhaps he had a nice shower or something like that. And the big one got him. The big one went in, but it didn't kill him because it needs a new host. Charles is in the hospital, right? In a coma, suffering from concussion and everything else. Mac was there and available, a lovely warm body for the creature to inhabit. The party don't know anything about this until they get back from visiting Charles in hospital, and there's just a note from Mac. All his stuff has gone, he's not there. Just a note that says, "It's inside me, I have to leave." So that was just fortunate timing on my part that the player had to leave the campaign at that point. That dovetailed in very nicely. And of course, this leaves a player character in the ether, so to speak, but also the creature as well. So is it going to pop up later on down the line? Are there going to be disappearances on another part of Prospero's Dream? Is Mac going to return? Will people be looking for him, such as the corporation, for example? So, you know, that was nice because although this is quite a short, snappy scenario, it takes place over a few days, it's left me with these nice little threads to pull on for later on. Overall then, highly recommend this scenario. It's great as a murder mystery with lots of little red herrings and alleyways to explore. It's great as a bug hunt. You can really play up that element. And of course, as I said, it has that added emotional or psychological level, that little bit of punch as well, when the players have to make the ultimate decision. So yeah, highly recommended. And the fact that it's free at the moment on DrivThru, well, you know, if you play Call of Cthulhu or any other horror-based game, then you'd be daft not to download it. All right, that's it for today. I'm always on the lookout for centipedes now, and you get that itching thing, you know? If one person in the group starts itching, everyone else will have a scratch. So yeah, I hope you don't bump into any red centipedes in the near future, especially not 6-foot ones. If you have played that scenario as a player, or if you've run it as a GM, I'll be interested in hearing your thoughts, how you adapted it. And as I said, if you want to follow the Mothership campaign, then just check out that playlist on the channel. Having dealt with the giant centipede, the group are currently looking at getting into a drugs factory and perhaps blowing it up. Explosives on a space station. That's going to be an interesting one. As always, please do like, share and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks to all the new people who have signed up lately. Much appreciated. Always nice to hear your comments. Just post them down below. And yeah, bicycle clips. That might be a good idea, mightn't it? That will stop the centipedes. I'll see you soon.